Welcome to Hispanic Biz, Stories of Success. We do a series of interviews with Hispanic business owners to tell us about their story, how they started the business, what their life was like, what challenges they faced and how they overcame them. We do this in hopes that you find these stories interesting and inspiring. We're fortunate to have with us Mr. George Ponce, the president of Alpine Electric. We were talking to him in an earlier segment about his background. And we want to continue that. Thank you, Mr. Ponce, for your time and coming to tell us your story. As you were saying, you came to a point in your life where your life had a major change and you had direction, and you felt that you wanted to be part of this church that you were involved with in helping them have the funds they needed to support the works that they do. And you started working in an electric company. Can you tell us about that first electrical job that you had?
Well, I went and applied in several electrical companies. No experience, no schooling. And this one company called me back. I was working the graveyard shift, and it was hard for me to work graveyard. And, I wanted a day job. At this point in my life, I had working at a car wash, working as a teller, graveyard shift. It was getting in the way of, I wanted to be normal. Working at night could really, shake you up because people don't let you sleep. In my house, it would be hard to sleep during the day. But, so anyways, I wanted a normal job Monday to Friday, and I saw my brother's checks, and so I said, I need to get into an electrical company. Started putting applications, and a company called me. It was Border Electric. They hired me as a shop boy. They asked me, you have experience? I said, no. Well, we need a shop boy. Are you interested? I go, yeah. I figured if I could get in there, I'll work my way up. And I started sweeping and, just arranging stuff at the shop. And Border Electric is a union shop, and so they wouldn't allow me to work with the electricians. I'd have to be in the union. I didn't ask or anything, but they told me, no, you can't work because you're not in the union. So I was like, well, how do I get in the union? And they told me, well, you got to go apply and blah, 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 all these things. And so I wanted to have tools to learn the trade. And this time I told my brother, well, hey, talk to your boss, see if he'll let me get in there. He did, and I did go in with my brother to work as a helper with him. But this was a residential electrical company. They didn't do much commercial or anything like that. And I worked there for about a couple of months, and I told my brother, why don't we go apply at some of these bigger companies and learn the trade, the way it's supposed to be learned. And my brother was like, kind of uneasy about it, but then we put applications, and they did hire us. Garrick Electric hired us. I worked with Garrick for about a year, and it's about a year and a half. And one thing I noticed with Garrick is, man, he wouldn't advance you financially. I guess he's such a big company, and but I learned a lot while I was working with him because he did nothing but commercial. But I wasn't getting advanced financially. And I said to myself, well, if I could get myself into a school, go for 4 years of school, and learn this trade well, I could work anywhere, And so by the preaching I would hear in this church, they'd emphasize on hard work and, character issues and honesty and, just doing what's right. And so I said, if I can learn this trade, do what's right, I can be one of the best workers in this company.
How old were you at the time?
I started going to this church when I was 21 years old. So I think at the time I was working for Garrick was probably, I'm thinking it was like 22, 23.
You weren't married yet?
No.
Okay.
And then I put an application with the union. They called me and they says, yeah, we'll get you to start school, and we'll get you a job with a union company. So I quit Garrick, and I went to work for the union, and I ended up with High Point. And I went through my apprenticeship. I went through the 4 years of school in the union, and I worked all those 4 years with High Point. And I was, I didn't even know this, but in the first year of my apprenticeship, we have this banquet where they award the best student for the first year and the best student in the second year. I didn't get the first year, but when I realized what they were doing, I told my wife, I got married about this. I was already married when I got into the union. I had just got married, and so I told my wife, you know what, I'm gonna get I'm gonna be the best. I'm gonna study hard to get, and I got apprenticeship of the year, my second, third, and on my fourth year, I went in out-of-state competition to represent the union from El Paso to Albuquerque, with different. And it was a competition. There was about 40 people, competing. Well, I was the one that was representing them in the control. They call it almost like a wire-off, where they give you, to wire certain things a certain way, and transformers and different things, and you compete time and how you do it. And I didn't win, but when they were going to award the winner, they had brought it down to 2 people, and it was me and somebody else.
Wow.
And in the last 2 guys, they had said my name first, so the other guy was the one that won.
I see.
And but it was interesting, and eventually I graduated, and I put my effort. I said, one thing I wanted to be the best. When I was a helper, I wanted to be the best helper the company had, no matter who I worked for, whether it was a good journeyman, bad journeyman, grouchy journeyman. I says, I'm gonna be the best helper that's ever worked for these guys. So I wanted to make the journeyman look good. That was I guess I would say my aim is to make this guy I work for, this guy I help, look good. If I make him look good, he's gonna be happy with me, and I'm gonna keep my job. Well, I kept that throughout my 4th years and never got laid off. As a matter of fact, on my 4th year, High Point was low on work. And the owner came to me and says, look, we're not gonna lay you off. We're not gonna make you go sign the books, but we're gonna lend you to another contractor friend of ours. As soon as we pick up work, you're gonna come back to work for us. To me, I was like, great, as long as I keep working. So they loaned me to Kendrick Electric. I started working for Kendrick, but I was a 4th year. And I did the same thing over there with Kendrick. I says, I'm gonna make, whoever they put me, I'm gonna make that journeyman look good. The same attitude and the same aim. And so I guess they kind of started liking me in Kendrick too. I guess reports got to the boss that I was a good worker. So when I actually became a journeyman, I took my test, passed it. Kendrick came and talked to me and says, look, High Point wants you back, but you just became a journeyman, so you have a choice. You don't have to go back. If you were an apprentice, you have to go back because you don't have a choice. You've got to do what you're told, but you're a journeyman now, and it's your choice. You can stay here or you can go back with High Point. And for certain circumstances that was going on, Kendrick had more opportunity. He was a bigger company, was doing more variety of electrical work. I became more interested in staying with Kendrick, so I stayed with Kendrick. And I stayed with Kendrick for 5 years. When I became a journeyman, it was the same aim. Now, as a journeyman, sometimes you do work on your own, but many times you end up working for a foreman. So my attitude was the same. I'm gonna make the foreman look good. As a journeyman, I said, I'm gonna make this foreman look good. And so whoever they send me to, just, what does the foreman need? What help does he need? Get the work done right, fast, and make him look good. Don't care about anybody or anything. You don't need to go tell the boss anything. Just make that guy look good. And that was my aim again. I started doing the same thing. Well, eventually, as it happens with, even when I was an apprentice, journeymen started saying, hey, George needs to be my helper. And the other guy was, no, he's with me, you're not gonna take him away. So they start kind of arguing over me. The boss gets involved and says, what the heck's going on? Well, there's George, you guys are fighting over an apprentice? So at one time the boss says, neither one of you is getting him, he's gonna go somewhere else. I kept that at it, and it brought attention to my boss. My boss was like, who is this young apprentice? Well, it was the same thing when I was a journeyman. Pretty soon the foremen were saying, well, I want George on my job. And the other guy goes, no, I want him in my job. I never said anything. I was just like, you just tell me where I'm gonna work, and so I can do my work. And so the boss started noticing this, and eventually he asked me to be a foreman. And so I says, now I gotta make the boss look good. And so now that I'm not a foreman, I'm not working for a foreman, then my aim was to make the boss look good. So in all this time, I was absorbing as much knowledge as I could. And so I became, a decent foreman, because when you don't have the experience, you make mistakes, but I was careful to make the least mistakes I could. And so I developed some friendships, and like I said, I was with Kendrick for 5 years. I think in the last 2 years, I was a foreman. And at this time also, like I said earlier, I thought of, what if I start my own company and help finance these missionaries? Maybe my aim is not to be a missionary, but maybe I need to be a financer. So I started putting my goals on getting my master's license. And so I started studying after work to eventually get my master's, and absorbing all the knowledge I could. I was a foreman now, and I started doing, I did get my master's, and I pulled my contractor's license, and I started doing side work in the weekends. Mainly it was residential work. I couldn't do commercial work because I had a day job. So I was doing a lot of residential work after work or in the weekends.
Were you starting to have children about this time?
Yes, I have 3 children. I have right now my son is 20, and my daughter is she's going to be 18 next month. My son's name is George Stephen. My daughter's name is Samantha. And then I have a younger child who's Nicole. She's 15. My youngest child is disabled. But yes, all this time, I only had 2 children at this time that I'm talking about, which was George and Samantha. Nicole wasn't born yet. But so I started doing side work in the weekends, and started getting a little bit of clientele calling me, hey, my aunt needs work. And so I started getting pretty busy in the weekends. Started buying tools that I would need that would help me, that would help me do the work faster and better. And I eventually bought a truck, and I started equipping it like a service truck. And after work, my wife would meet me somewhere with this truck. I'd give her the vehicle I was in. I couldn't show up to work on a service truck. So I was kind of doing it under the radar, because in the union, you're not supposed to do side work. And but I figured, well, it's the only way I can do it, I was experimenting with it and trying it out. It's just, and I says, yeah, if the union finds out, I'm going to lose my job, because they tell you that you're not supposed to do this. So I knew the consequences, and I was willing. I was just kind of playing with it. The idea of starting my own company, I wasn't sure whether this was going to work or not. I didn't have any finances. I didn't know anybody with a business, no relatives, nobody in this church had a business either. It wasn't a friend that I knew that had a business, didn't know anybody. So it was all probing here and there, and I started doing kind of well in in this site work. And I started getting a little nervous, saying, you know what, as a company, you're supposed to pay taxes and all these things, and I'm a little worried. I don't know how all this is supposed to work, and I kind of want to do what's right and pay my taxes, do things right without doing this moonlighting thing. So I went and I registered at the city. I says, I'm going to do this right. Well, I didn't know that when I registered, it comes out in the newspaper. somebody from the union read the newspaper and said, Alpine Electric, George Ponce, the owner, isn't that George Ponce, you know? So I get confronted one day from one of these guys from the union, hey, George. And then I go, yeah, who's Alpine Electric? And I said, oh, I guess the cat is out of the bag. And so I says, is that your company? I says, yeah. And then he says, does the union know about it? I go, I guess they're gonna. So inside I says, my days are numbered. Pretty soon I'm gonna have to make a decision whether I close this thing up or I move on to doing my own business. So it was kind of troubling times because my wife was pregnant with my third child during this time. And it was troubling because I says, man, I have a very pregnant wife. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, I get a letter in the mail. The union wants to talk to me about Alpine Electric. So here I'm doing a lot of praying and I'm saying, God, whatever it is you want me to do, let me know. But I got to make a decision. I have 2 kids and I have a very pregnant wife. And I have insurance through the union and this thing. And so I go to this meeting and first thing they ask me, is this your company? I says, yes, it is. You know you're not supposed to do this? I says, yes, I know. Why'd you do it? And I told them, I'm not a rich kid. I don't have rich parents. I want to be a contractor. I can't go to a bank and borrow money. It takes a lot of money to be a contractor. So I started explaining the truth. I didn't lie to them. I told them exactly the truth. So they're all kind of, half of them want to, I guess, do sanctions against me for disobeying. The other half are saying, well, he wants to be a contractor. We need contractors. So half were for me and half were against me. Mm. And I'm sitting there like, well, and they says, well, you need to step outside while we figure out what we're going to do with you. So I said, all right. So I went outside and I came back in and they tell me, okay, we have $10,000 we can give you.
Wow.
If you sign as a contractor with a union. But if you don't sign with us as a union, we're gonna give you these, we're gonna come against you if you chose to start your own business. So I tell them, can I think about this? Do I have to make my decision right now? And they said, no, you can think about it. But remember, you got $10,000, no questions asked, but you just need to sign for 2 years. So I go home, I talk it over with my wife. What do we do? And so, I said, well, I'm doing residential work. I am kind of busy in the weekends. I'm not sure if it's enough to substitute my check that I make every week, and I go, and it's residential work. The union doesn't like they don't do residential work. And so I said, well, why don't we give it our best shot? If it doesn't work, I have knowledge. If the union doesn't want me back, if it doesn't work, there's a lot of electrical companies that I know will hire me. Once they see who I am and what I know they'll hire me. So I wrote them back and told them, you know what? I told them I'm going to put my faith to the test. I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to give it my best shot, and if it works, great. Right now, I'm not going to be part of the union. I'm not going to take the $10,000.
Oh, really?
Because I'm basically doing all residential work. I don't need the union for that. And besides, by union wages, those $10,000, they were going to be gone in a couple of months. They would have been gone. So I decided to do it all by myself. So I resigned the union. I gave them my letter of resignation. And,
wow.
And I got out and I started trying to promote my company all by myself out of my house. And, I made a commitment with the church that I was going to tithe from the beginning, from any income, that I was going to pay my tithes. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, well, I was just going to go back to work for somebody. And little by little, there's a lot of, in the beginning, it's hard, there's a lot of all kinds of mental issues. You're not good enough. You don't know what you're doing. I remember going to buy materials. I'm working during the day on my own little jobs now. I'm not going to have a check on Friday. It was all up to me. And so I started advertising in some of these little local newspapers, and my wife is very pregnant, So my daughter is born, I think it's about 3 weeks after I started my own business.
Wow.
And my third child, I didn't know she was born disabled. She looks normal, everything looks normal, but my daughter cannot stand up, talk. She has no motor skills. But as a small baby, you can't tell. We couldn't tell there was anything wrong with my daughter until she was about 4 or 5 months old, when she couldn't sit down like normal kids her age. We would take her to the church nursery, and my daughter would just kind of, and we were like, there's something wrong with our child because she can't sit down. So we took her to get checked, and the doctor tells my wife that my daughter's going to be disabled for pretty much for life, and she's not going to be able to talk. And at this time I'm thinking, oh man, did I make a mistake? I don't have insurance. I have a very sick child that's going to need help for the rest. At that time is when I felt like, do I go back to the union for the safety of insurance, or do I keep going where I'm going? That was the hardest decision, I think. And but I says, well, let's keep going, see what happens. And so I kept working, and eventually I was working 16 hours a day. And so I said, I need to get some help. So I hired a helper to help me. I was concerned with giving this person 40 hours. I go, man, I can't commit to giving, I don't know if I'm gonna have 40 hours. I only have work for this week. I don't know what's gonna happen next week. But, I believe God helped me a lot. I know He did. Having faith in Him helping you is what I believe got me through all this early stages of starting a business. Because every time I would go to church, I'd get encouraged, to keep going. I try to figure, I'm going to hear something in this sermon that's going to help me where I'm at. And I did find that, and I started getting more and more. I started hiring, I hired an apprentice. Pretty soon, both of us were working 16 hours. And so next thing you know it, I said I need to hire somebody else. So it was 2 helpers and me, and so it brought the hours down. And eventually, we're all 3 of them working more. So
were you still doing residential, or you already
mainly residential. I didn't have it takes finances to do commercial, and commercial jobs don't pay you right away. And so one thing led to another, and eventually my wife was busy taking care of my daughter. My wife had a job too, so she was helping me by working herself, and I was doing electrical work. And it got she worked for the McCory's pharmacy she started as a dishwasher there, and she became a pharmacist tech. Wow. And so when I told her, you know what, you need to help me with this company now, she tried to quit her job, and their bosses says, well, why are you quitting? And I also told her, we got kids now, we need to stay home to take care of the kids. They told her, well, why don't you bring the kids to work? They made a little room for her to come and fill out, and they actually put a little room to bring our kids. So we did that for about 6 months, and eventually I told her, no, they're good, they did good for you, but I need you to work for me. So eventually she stopped working with the McCory's. They treated her very well. And we're still friends with the McCory's. I do electrical work for them, and till this day. And so my wife's worked for me ever since. And now there's about 60 people in our company. We have about 27 trucks. We do about, I'm going to say around $4 million a year. And all of our equipment is paid for. We pay our bills on time. Our suppliers get paid on time. And we've been paying tithes to our church, and we help our church with as much as we can. And all I can say is things have gotten, they're working. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of responsibility.
Well, and you also followed your dream. You have an airplane now.
Yes, that's right.
So you fly.
Yeah, we were doing a job out of town in Arizona, and I had to I was driving back. I was keeping the business going here in El Paso, and I had to drive out of town to Arizona. I'd go on the weekends. I'd leave on Friday and come back sometimes Monday morning to keep working in El Paso. And it was working for Homeland Security, running some cable at the fence they were building in Arizona. And so there was a airport there. And as I'm driving back and forth, I see this airport. I go, man, if I could learn how to fly an airplane, it wouldn't take me 5 hours to drive back and forth in the weekends. And so as I'm driving back, I pray. I says, God, if this is your will for me to learn to fly an airplane, let me know. And but then I started thinking, if I approach my wife, she's gonna have a heart attack. We have a disabled daughter. If something happens to me, To make the long story short, I says, I'm not gonna mention it. I'll let God tell me if He wants me to do it or not. 2 weeks later, my pastor calls me for lunch, and he wants to tell me something. And he says, I could tell he wants to tell me something. And at the end of our lunch, he tells me, I want to ask you something. And I said, what is that? And he tells me, how would you like to learn how to fly an airplane? I need somebody to fly me every now and then when I go out to preach. And so I took that as my sign and learned how to fly an airplane and bought one.
Wow. Fantastic. Your story of your business is fascinating. So before you started your business, now you had about almost 10 years of training. So you
would
trained,
say that, yeah.
And you were learning about the business.
Mainly the actual work on it, and the trade part of it, yes.
And your wife comes in to help you with the office and get things in
Yes.
order and the finances. And so it's a family business.
Yes.
And now how many years have you been in business to this date?
I'm gonna say between 15 and 16.
And you have a full crew, and you say 60 employees.
Right into, yeah, right. It fluctuates between 50 and 60.
And mostly commercial work.
No, we still do residential. We do a lot of residential still.
And does your son work with you too?
Yes, he does. My son's he's on his 3rd year of trade school, electrical.
Okay. The experience has been a tremendous experience for your family, for you.
Yes. Yes, it has. It's good, I'm real proud of my family. They're, good kids, good wife, and I got good employees, good relationship with my employees, and we developed a good atmosphere.
Good. What year did you start your business, Alpine Electric?
Man, I really haven't thought about that one, but I was 33 years old when I started, and it was around 16 years ago.
Okay.
15 years ago.
And you were doing commercial work. I mean, residential work, and you started with what, 3 employees?
I started by myself.
Uh-huh.
It was just me. And eventually I hired an apprentice to help me.
Now you're a master electrician.
Yes.
What does that mean?
A master electrician is somebody who's passed an 8-hour test concerning electrical code, and you can't take that test until you have 4 years with a journeyman license, which is a licensed electrician. That's a journeyman license.
And then you got your contractor license. That's different.
Yeah, with the city of El Paso, you gotta have a state of Texas, you gotta have a contractor's license to do business. And as an electrical contractor, you also have to have a master's.
So you started, how did you get business when you began?
I was just doing, I was an electrician and started doing side work. People would ask me, hey, can you do this at my house? And I started doing it for extra money, and eventually it developed into more and more people calling me to do that.
And how would they find out? Just word of mouth? Were you
Pretty much, yes. Word of mouth was the way it got started.
Wow, you didn't advertise, you didn't?
No, I did not. And didn't advertise until the later, a little bit later into right before I started my business. I did do a little bit of advertising.
Why did you call your company Alpine?
I like the name. I figured I actually was going to name it it's a crazy thing. I like the stereos. I like the Alpine stereos, and I like the Pioneer stereos.
Yeah.
And I was just searching for a name, and I picked Alpine because of the letter A, but it was going to be either Pioneer or Alpine. I just like the stereos.
Yeah.
For some reason, that was that was the reason I picked this.
I've had rectilinear speakers for 25 years, and they're big, bold speakers. I love those speakers, so I understand that. But so as you grew in residential work, you had also trained to do commercial work. So how long did it take you to get into commercial work?
Oh, I wouldn't do commercial work while I was working a day job because somebody needs to be there during the day. Residential work was easier for me to do because it would be done in the weekends or after work. And so I didn't start doing commercial work till probably, I don't know, 6-8 months after starting on my own full time.
And so at what point did you start having employees?
I would say it was probably after the first 4 months. I was getting overwhelmed with work, and I needed to hire somebody to help me.
And so your business just steadily grew?
Yes, amazingly, yes. We've been growing every year since then.
Wow. And you brought your wife in to help you with the business. How long were you in business before you had to do that?
I'm going to say, this is just going by memory, and I'm going to say somewhere around 1.5 years, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe 1.5 years, between 1 year and 2 years, somewhere in there.
And then did you start looking at commercial work once you were on your own and away from a full-time day job?
My strength as an electrician was commercial. I mean, that's what I had been mainly doing all my working days. Rarely did I do residential work while I was working. And but as with my knowledge and the background that I had in the schooling, residential work it's a lot simpler to do that than commercial work. It's not that complicated.
So you really had about 10 years training in the electrical field before you
Yes.
started your business. But did you have business operation, business management, running your business? Did you have training to run a business?
No.
How did you learn?
The way I learned to run my business is really the truthful way I can say how I came up with how I run my business is really through the Bible. There's a lot of business sense in the Bible that, when I read it, that I picked up. It's basically, to me, good business is having character, doing for your customers what it's really basic, doing for them what you would want somebody do for you, being fair with your suppliers, with your employees. You have problems, you solve them. I solve them with what is the right thing to do, basically approach. And I didn't go to business school. I didn't have any other business friends or people that could tell me this is what you do. Basically, out of my Bible reading and my hearing, like I said earlier in segments, is that I go to a church that is very evangelistical. We believe in starting new churches all over the place. And these preachers preach on this thing to help pastors start new churches. I felt I was starting a church, except it was an electrical business. And that's how I deal with, and to this day, that's how I do business. Just by try to use the best character qualities that I can use, so that people trust me and I trust people, and basically do what's right.
So what kinds of challenges did you face?
Well, in a business, there's always money challenges. How are you going to get this? How are you going to get that? It's good organization, good management. You got to see what's coming, and you got to make sure you prepare. You got to learn to learn to live with what's necessary, and don't buy things that are not necessary.
Let me ask you. A lot of other people probably had tried to get into the business, in the electrical contracting business, and they did not find success, as you have. Have you observed any of that?
Yes.
Why were you successful?
Well, I guess like I said, I have good coaching through biblical standards, and I guess I believe God helps me pick up on these issues, what's right and what's wrong. It's I don't have it's amazing. Now I look back and I realize what you're saying. Why don't these people make it? Why are they doing things wrong? And it's pretty much an issue of life. The way I look at it is you got to make the right decisions, little decisions. You got to get rid of bad habits. If you're a person that likes to show off, that's a mistake in business, in my opinion. You can get yourself in trouble with a lot of different things. You don't respect your employees, you don't treat them well, you're going to have some issues down the road. You are not truthful with your partners, like suppliers, mechanics, people you do business with. You're going to have problems. Once they see who you are, that you do what you say you're going to do, it makes it easier on you in the long run.
How many hours a day are you putting into your, you've been working now, your business is 15, 16 years old.
I'm going to say it's less now than it was in the beginning, but I don't work 8-hour days. I think right now I work somewhere around 10-hour days, and on Saturdays it's probably 4. I could get in, as a business owner, you can get into trouble by focusing too much in the business and not focusing enough on your family. I've seen business owners get into a lot of trouble for doing that. You can get into a lot of trouble for doing that.
Well, in your case, one of the things that you had shared with us is that you have a disabled daughter, and
yes,
that takes a lot of attention. Now, how old is your daughter, and how do you have to take care of her?
She's 15, and she requires, full attention. She can't do anything for herself. She's a very happy child, and she can communicate with her eyes and her gestures. Noise that she makes. She's an interesting child. She's my son and daughter love her. My wife loves her, and we are used to her now. If something happened to that little girl, it wouldn't be good for any of us. But when she gets sick, we're all, we all want to, we all hurry to get her to be right and be well. But it's.
So in building your business, you haven't sacrificed your family.
No, that was one decision I made. Like I said, I think the best coaching there could ever be in biblical standards, character. There's one particular, character issue where you don't undo what you're building. I'm not sure what that word is. I know that part, but you got to make sure that you got everything, you take care of, balance it out. Because you could be a very successful business owner, and when you reach your goal, you find out that you sacrifice your family and it's not worth it.
Some of the reasons businesses do not succeed is, and the issues they raise are lack of access to capital. Sometimes the market, goes south on them. The other, of course, is management training. How have you been able to keep ahead of the capital needs of your business?
Well, like I said, living modest. What we need is not getting rid of the wants, and just spending your money on the needs, making the right investment in the business, and making good decisions. And till this day, we don't. My wife doesn't like jewels. We're not into that. Expensive stuff, expensive vehicles. Yes, to this day we can afford nice transportation and so forth, but we don't. The most expensive jewel my wife has is our 10th year anniversary ring that I gave her, and that's about the only expensive jewel I think she owns.
Now, but you've invested in your business. You have a lot of vehicles and expensive vehicles. How have you been able to purchase those and purchase your building? And
just reinvesting. When you pay your bills at the end of the month, if you have something left over, then you buy the piece of equipment that's needed. If you don't have anything, then you don't buy anything. Business is like, once somebody told me business is like making a pie. You're the guy that makes the pie, but you buy the eggs from this person, the flour from this person, the milk and so forth, ingredients. You build a pie, you sell it. You got to cut the piece that belongs to the guy that gave you the eggs, the piece to the guy that gave you the flour, and everybody gets their piece, and whatever's left is yours. And I kind of follow that to a point every month. Is I pay everybody that is doing business with me, and whatever's left, sometimes it's a big piece, sometimes there's nothing left.
So you buy most of your things cash?
No, we've taken care of our credit. We've always had good credit, me and my wife, and we've used the credit. A credit is like somebody that helps you build this pie. You borrow from them, and number one is you need to pay that person back without us having to spend any money on ourselves. It's just what's necessary, really.
So you developed a good relationship with a banker?
Yes. Yes, today we have good relationship with bankers. But on our initial stage, it was mainly credit cards.
Wow.
We used our credit cards as our banking.
Yeah. In your experience, have you had legal issues facing you?
There was some startups. Minor, people not paying us. That happens in a business. But, and eventually, there was one guy that conned us into, he owed us, I think, $47,000. And that was a struggle to get off of that. And presently right now, there's a business in El Paso that owes me $16,000, $17,000. And they haven't paid, and their business is open. And, they're just not paying us. They don't return phone calls. There's somebody that owes us, people that owe us $5,000, and I'm thinking of the ones right now, and they're looking on declaring bankruptcy, and you run into those kind of problems. Yes.
What size contracts do you do now?
We got bonding for, I think I'm not sure if it's any. We're just working on our bonding capacity, and I think it's like 3 or 5 million. Right now we're working on that. The largest contract we've done, I'm going to say, is right around $1 million electrical work, right in that neighborhood.
And you do government contract. You applied to 8A. You were 8A certified with the SBA, Minority Business?
Yes. I believe that was a mistake on my part. I was told that that was a good thing to do at an early stage of my company, and it was a mistake to get into it then. My advice to people that do business is don't get into the 8A, as far as on construction, I don't know other, but don't get into the 8A until your business has grown and you can take advantage of larger contracts as an 8A contractor.
Why do you say that?
Because I think it's the 9-year period that 8A is your opportunity. I didn't take advantage of the 8A until I was in my, I think, 8th or 9th year. We got a couple of good contracts, and that was it.
Do you do government contracting now?
Yes, we've done some after the 8A, and not real big, but we've done some.
I want to ask you about your investment in your business, your equipment and your property. What kind of equipment do you have, and what kind of property do you have for your business?
Well, we have right now today we have about an 18,000 square foot warehouse where we have our shop, and we have about another 18 to 20,000 square foot yard where we have a 3,000 square foot building, and we have all kinds of equipment. We have a couple of cranes, a couple of bucket trucks, skid steers, bobcats, backhoe, trenchers, all kinds of electrical tools, tuggers, benders, hydraulic benders, tuggers, and welders, everything that's required to do electrical contracting.
What's the next step for Alpine Electric?
Right now, what we're doing is, since actually all of our equipment is practically paid for, we're investing in real estate. We're buying properties and renting them. And my aim is to enlarge the company. But you always have, my experience is 15 years, is you need to prepare for very rainy days. We've been very blessed to get through some of these hard times by proper planning, preparation, and foreseeing what could go wrong and doing things right, that we've gotten through some of these hardships. That's my attitude, is we need to create assets for what may happen down the road. We're still living a modest life. I mean, we don't have to be traveling all the time and spending money. Me, my wife, and our family, we're happy enjoying life without having to have a lot of spending a lot of money doing it.
Do you still do a lot of work out of town?
Some years we do, some years we don't. This has been a year that we've done a little bit more than usual.
Because we were talking earlier, and you mentioned that you have an airplane now, and that was to help you get to some job sites.
Yes.
And of course, you started with one plane, I understand, and moved to others. What is it you have now?
I started training in a 172 Cessna, and then I bought a 182 Cessna. And right now I'm in a partnership, 50%, 50-50 with another partner on a 210 Centurion Cessna 210.
That double prop?
No, that's a single prop, but it's just as fast or sometimes even faster than a
And how much
small
time?
twin.
How much time do you fly? How much time do you spend flying?
It all depends. Right now I'm at about 700 hours, and I am an instrument-rated pilot, and it's come handy.
And what do you use what do you use that for?
To go visit job sites. Sometimes if we get a job out of town, I transported some of my employees or picked some of them up. I transport my pastor when he goes out to preach to remote areas that it takes a long time for him to drive. Done that. And for my family, I've taken my family to visit friends in Nevada and friends in her brother in Louisiana. And
Something you enjoy.
yes, I do.
Do you enjoy building your business?
Yes, I do. I mean, I enjoy challenges. It keeps me, I enjoy that. I mean, I'm a kind of guy where I guess I could get focused into something and I enjoy the process of, making it happen.
You're not afraid of challenges.
No, not really. I mean, I believe God, it's his desire to experiment life knowing that he's there with us and I feel his his support in what I do because I'm involved in what he's doing.
So what is your biggest success to this day?
To this day, I would say is being accomplish the goals that me and my wife set ourselves to do. I mean, I'm helping our church out. Our family is in good standing. The business is in good standing, and I'm amazed at the fact that doing things the way we've done them, has worked as well as it has.
What are you doing now to prepare your business for further growth?
Well, like I said, I'm investing in real estate. As a construction company, we are able to repair real estate. We have the means to repair rental properties and so forth, and we're doing that. I'm trying to create additional income through rentals to help us in case we get into a bind financially, which that's not the case right now, but it may be down the road.
And do you see opportunity ahead for your business in El Paso?
Oh yes, El Paso is a growing city. There's a lot of things going on here in El Paso, and I like the city. I mean, I've lived here all my life, and we enjoy ourselves here in El Paso.
What would you like to see in your immediate future with your business?
I like to develop our employees that have been key to our success. I'm trying to figure how I can instill my vision in their lives, that even though they are working for me, I'm kind of playing around with that idea. I would eventually like to develop business partners with people that I trust, people with good character, people that that they know who I am and I know who they are. Through time, I see who they are, how they behave, and I'm looking for individuals in my company that simulate the type of character that I aspire for, which is good character, and let them, seek their own success in, either, partnering with me or just developing good character if they want to move on their own,
So you're really into developing others?
Yes, I mean, I believe I found the true. I mean, it's good for me to find what I found, and I definitely believe others should they should have what I have. And it's not. I mean, I could say it's the money. I hear a lot of people thinking that if you have a lot of money, that's why I'm happy. Well, that's not necessarily true. I was happy before I had a company. I was a young, father with a young wife and kids, and we felt we had everything. We had everything we needed back then. We were happy. The only reason I started the business was to you know, we wanted to be missionaries. We didn't need money. We knew as missionaries we weren't gonna get a lot of money, but the need was money to finance missionaries, and we went after that, and that's what we're doing. And you know, and we had what we needed back then. And if people develop a business thinking that when they get all this money they're going to be happy, they're going to be in for a surprise.
Well, you started your business with a purpose, and as you've talked and shared with us your story, that purpose keeps coming through. And of course, you just said that your purpose has been to help fund the church and help fund, you know, the missionaries, and you've kept that focus all the way through in our discussion. And clearly, your business has a purpose, and you have a purpose. And I appreciate your sharing your story with us, because I find it intriguing and certainly encouraging. And I saw in the paper the other day you got recognized by the Character Council. You're known as a man of character, and I appreciate you sharing that. Again, we've been very fortunate with interviewing Mr. George Ponce of Alpine Electric, a very strong company with 60 employees now and growing. And we certainly appreciate your watching this segment of Hispanic Biz, Stories of Success. We trust that it's been entertaining and interesting for you, and we ask you to keep track of the times of showing of this show so you can watch our other segments. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day.